Hey Wanda, this is Jody Miller. Good to see you again. I know it's weird for me to introduce myself, but for anyone who's watching, I'd like to let them know. So Wanda, you and I both live in the Atlanta area, and we're starting off today with this new interview series where I'm going to introduce a few professional Atlanta early musicians to the Atlanta audiences. So that when people go to performances, they know a little bit more about you. So, wanted to start off by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Uh, I was actually born in Taiwan, and my family immigrated to Gwinnett County when I was in the middle of fourth grade. In 1979, Gwinnett County did not have many immigrants. My siblings and I were the first English as a second language students in our elementary and middle schools.
Okay.
I went to Rockbridge Elementary. My sister, went to Wilbur Middle School and graduated from Berkmar. Decided to go to Emory University for my undergrad, where I actually have a double major in psychology and liberal studies. But while at Emory, I, took voice lessons, sang in choirs, did a lot of musicals. So the life there was always centered around music and being a creative and being a performer. And then master's at Georgia State, and then doctorate at Indiana University.
Okay. And when you immigrated from Taiwan, did you come with zero English skills, or had you had a few in school already?
Actually, I had zero English skills. My parents, though, back in 1979, the first year that you were taught English was sixth grade. So my sister had about, I guess, 2 months of English instruction before we moved because she was in the sixth grade. So I was in the fourth, none whatsoever. My parents did send us to English tutorial classes. So here's a 9-year-old and 11-year-old getting on a, city bus. We went together and, after these English tutorial sessions, the only two words that I could say, because they were so difficult for the Chinese mouth to get around, were lamp and handkerchief. I mean, very
Okay.
useful words.
Yeah. What linguistically about those words made them very difficult for you?
I think it was the consonant combination, the
Okay.
and also the all the handkerchief. But of course, we don't ever say handkerchief. So this is what we were taught, and came to America with those two words. And I think my father tried to drill, if we were asked, "Where are you from?" we would reply, "I am from Taipei, Taiwan, Republic of China." Like those were the
Okay.
things that we drilled.
Okay.
Not helpful in school, but
Yeah, I just
yeah.
remember on my trip there, most of the people who I think we would consider young now, many of them were adults to me when I was a kid. Probably anybody under the age of 30 was really fluent in English. And by the time you got to about the 40-year-old generation and older, they generally did not know English. So that must have been something implemented, around the time you must have started school.
Exactly, exactly. And it became earlier and earlier. So now English is mandatory, I believe, in Taiwan as it is in China in first grade.
Okay.
So at least you're taught, even if it's not fluent conversation, you are taught how to read and write English from a young age. So I didn't benefit from that, but Gwinnett County was okay.
Okay, so when you were in Gwinnett County and you were moving along through your school career and you got into high school, did you get any formal voice training at that point, or was that all later?
I had my first voice lesson in junior year. I studied with Tommy Talley, who lived, I think, like a mile and a half from our house.
Mhm.
And I didn't know anybody. I think it was a recommendation, maybe from my choir director at Berkmar. But she mostly prepared pageant girls. So she had a pool in her backyard, and she was a wonderful keyboardist. So we worked on a lot of musical theater repertoire, and the first, I think, oratorio aria, I didn't know it was called an oratorio aria, but the first sort of classical piece that she gave me was "O Rest in the Lord" from Elijah, which
Okay.
is for mezzo. But at that time, we were just working and singing, so it was fun. But and I did a lot of singing, but I did not go into governor's honors in music at all.
Hmm.
Um, it just occurred to me, a few months ago, uh, a colleague was asking, so when did you go to governor's honors in music? I was like, I didn't go in music. I went in actually communicative arts. So as much music as I did and valued in high school and middle school, I didn't really seriously think of music as a career until I had actually graduated from Emory.
Okay. And what can you pinpoint or generalize whatever made you change that path for yourself?
I can pinpoint it
Okay,
to
good.
exactly the year. It
Right.
was the fall of 1992. I had graduated from undergrad, and I had a temp job
Okay.
answering phones at the Japan America Society office in downtown Atlanta.
Okay.
It paid well for a temp job, and I answered phones for 8 hours a day. I was there as a maternity leave sub, but sometimes those days I might answer 3 phone calls.
Oh,
Oh yeah, I was bored to tears, and so it gave me a lot of time to think about what I wanted to do. I did an equal amount of singing and acting in undergrad, and I debated between auditioning for acting apprenticeship programs or pursuing a master's in music. And I decided that music was something I needed to do when I was young,
okay.
because there's some fundamental skills that I knew I was missing and I wanted to improve. So yeah, from the fall of 1992, I then contacted Georgia State just to take a serious voice lesson, going into it wanting to see if it was something that I wanted to study as a career,
Okay.
and happened in the studio of Betty Boone,
Oh, yeah.
who actually wanted me to sing with vibrato, and I was not happy about that. Having sung a lot of musical theater and choral music, I was suspicious of vibrato. So it took me about a month
You were
before I.
suspicious about the vibrato because you felt like it took you out of the realm of being a serious musician, a serious
Yeah.
classical and early musician, or you even considered early music at this
No,
point?
I
Okay.
had not even been exposed, other than maybe singing a hymn, when our church choir went to sing at a church and we would sing a service. And um, so, Lutheran chorales, not even, a concept in my mind, but choral music required so much straight tone singing, or as I've come to call it, straighter tone, that I was uncomfortable and didn't understand the purpose of vibrato or its presence. So it took me about a month, and once I settled into, this is what it feels like to pursue music, to consider doing that on a full-time basis, then I formally auditioned for the master's program, and I actually, at the audition was Walter Huff and William Fred Scott,
Mhm.
and the voice faculty, which at the time was Betty Boone, Florence Koploff, and Dwight Coleman. So it was, I was doing my master's at Georgia State at a time when it was, just still a small program, and I look at it, 25 years later, and it's a powerhouse. So I feel very honored to have been at Georgia State at that time.
Oh, well, the music department certainly come a long way since then. So it sounds like you were probably coming in right when things were starting to, or right when Georgia State was starting to gain a little bit of notoriety. And
Yes,
and so did you enjoy your time at Georgia State? Do you feel like you got what you needed from that to propel you into the next step?
I did. Um, but to sort of return to the topic of early music, Georgia State was not known for a historically informed performance practice when it comes to early music. Um, and I had an inkling of what that was about, but I really became immersed in it when I went to Indiana. But the very first exposure, really, to what early music could mean was actually when I was an undergrad at Emory. And at the time, Robert Shaw had a very strong connection and relationship to the music department,
Hmm.
and and in fact his France Institute was Quercy Emory.
Yeah.
I remember my junior year, Al Calabrese prepared us for a concert of two Bach cantatas that were to be conducted by Robert Shaw, and the orchestra, were all players from the Atlanta Symphony, and it was Bach's Cantata 106 and 4. So Gottes Zeit ist die allerbeste Zeit and Christlich und Todesbanden. Yeah, to what a privilege that we were 22 members strong, about to sing under Robert Shaw's baton, and I didn't really know what was happening, but I remember watching and being mesmerized by Jonathan Dewey, his playing. I mean, I think it must have been, couldn't have been my first exposure to Bach, but it was the first and the most impactful early experience with Bach.
Okay.
And in Atlanta, back in 1990, that was back in 1991.
Okay.
College setting, period, ensembles were not in my radar. Um, but I began to listen more, to recordings. But by the time I got to Indiana in 1997, um, I had heard that Paul Hillier was the director of the Early Music Institute.
Hmm.
And he had a choir. Doctoral students didn't have to sing in a choir, but I knew I wanted to sing with him. So I asked if I could audition. I had a friend who was his assistant for Pro Arte Singers. So off we went, and I auditioned and got in, and through that choir then became immersed in both the the Early Music Institute, but also in sort of the regular modern music part of Indiana. And that's where my love and knowledge really grew. And I realized that I loved early music. It spoke to me in a deeply powerful way.
Okay. And I think it's interesting that you said you elected to be in the choir, because I will say that some of my most memorable experiences, not just for fun but for learning and for understanding early music better, have been interactions with singers. Whether I was sort of um, being put in a position to sing and would have to get a little bit of direction on how to handle certain things, or whether I gear my instruction toward what singers do. So that's You know, that's, I think that's very important for people to know. You should sing when you get an opportunity, even if it's not something that you think your strength is in. And people like you make it really, you know, really fun because you have such a beautiful voice and people can aspire to that. What brought you back to Atlanta? Were you so deeply rooted in Atlanta that that was just the place you were bound to end up?
I went to Indiana knowing that I wanted to come home to Atlanta. My parents still live in Gwinnett County, and my siblings are here. And I, my thoughts were that, with an education, I would have the knowledge to teach anywhere.
Okay.
So that the 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 race to get an academic job. I mean, I participated. Never got was a finalist for a tenure track position in the Atlanta area, but didn't get it. But that was okay. I was a early sort of participant in the gig economy.
Okay.
But I always knew that I wanted to come back to Atlanta. It's
Okay.
where my family was and my friends, and it always felt like home. And actually, one of the factors is that when I finished my undergrad at Emory, I immediately wanted to sing in the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra chorus.
Okay.
So um, that is also an integral part of the decision to come home.
Oh yeah, and if people don't know this already, people should know that the draw to have any influence by Robert Shaw was just that was just at the top of any singer's list, and actually conductors likewise, because in my master's degree, when I was studying instrumental music, I mean there a lot, Robert Shaw's influence came up a lot in our study because he did make such an impact. So what about the Atlanta early music scene? What do you like about it? What do you wish were different? To tell us about early music life in Atlanta as a performer and a teacher.
Atlanta has seen an ebb and flow of early music. It's still mostly practiced by the choirs,
Mhm.
and that I love. They uphold the tradition, and Lauda, which you lead, gives instrumentalists an outlet. And I know that, but what I wish is that for an ensemble to be called Atlanta Baroque Orchestra,
Mhm.
that it would have a more Atlanta focus.
Mhm. More
That
Atlanta players or more Atlanta performances or
I think more Atlanta performers,
okay.
or help to grow that level of musicianship in early music performance in Atlanta. I know that the years that I spent on the board of Atlanta Early Music Alliance is that that was a missing element. I think there are performers here who would love to learn more about you know historically performed a historically informed performance, um, and I think that is crucial to growing the amount of performances and the audiences as well.
Well, I
Um,
found through I moved here in 1992, so we sort of align a little bit in our professional lives. Although my professional performing life, which is very different from yours, it really took off much later. Um, I found during the entire time that I've been in Atlanta, I found that I've had to do a lot of community service because people here love music. People here love to do more. Atlanta's just not overflowing with professional musicians who are able to devote so much time into guiding others. So what do you think is have you put any thought into what a good solution for that might be? What are some steps folks could take in the Atlanta area to bring early music more to our audiences and to educate people more about why is early music early music? Why was your Bach performance of 106 so much more impactful than listening to a cassette tape of Bach when you were in 10th grade, for those sorts of things.
I think there's still room for once we are out of, having once we survive through this pandemic and are able to get out of our homes. um, I think we need an early music festival in this city, um, to start. It doesn't even have to be week long. It could be a one Saturday where we have professional performances with some workshops. I'm discovering that the Atlanta Symphony's principal bassoonist,
Mhm.
he loves recorders, and he has, you know, made now these videos with him
Mhm.
playing all the instruments uh, for Bach, and
And for
there
anyone
are
who
other.
doesn't know him, his name is Andrew Brady. He is recently moved here from New Orleans. But continue.
Yes, yes, Andrew. So there are performers that love early music on all levels in Atlanta, and I'd love to see a festival that honored the gamut
Mhm.
and really celebrated. And that's the and finding a host. That's the difficulty,
Yeah.
because it's a big job, and you want to have a lot of passion, but also a lot of time to organize something like that, and to bring back, to bring Atlanta Baroque Orchestra and New Trinity Baroque together, along with um, the other ensembles that I know that are, I think Amethyst
Mhm.
is a new ensemble in town, and Jody, you have your own.
Well, Amethyst is my group.
Ah, yes, yes,
Amethyst
yes.
is my group. Well, not mine personally, but mine with my ensemble partners. But there's Ritornello, which is we're a little bit in transition. Cal Johnson has decided, who has played keyboard for us for a little while now. He's decided he's going to, in his retired life, spend a little more time traveling. So we don't have any real quick upcoming plans. But there are a lot of early music vocal groups here too. So that's that. I'm like you. You're starting to name groups, and the list is fairly short. Before then, you have to stop and think. But then when I start naming groups, I start thinking of vocal groups. I'm so happy that vocal music here is already, at least to some degree, a little bit prolific in the Atlanta area.
Absolutely. Now, if we, if we can grow from that,
Mhm.
featuring the vocal ensembles and wrap in the instrumental ensembles, um, to make it more. I wish early music um, could be on the radio more.
Okay.
That would help people understand that early music is not just harpsichord,
Yeah.
that it is. I love when I teach classes, when I can highlight two different performances of, let's say, a Bach Brandenburg concerto, one by a modern orchestra and another by a period ensemble, and to compare and contrast the textural differences. And that is very illuminating. And I would love to do that on a bigger scale for people to really fall in love with early music, not as something that is less than, but in its more transparent textures,
Yeah.
actually illuminate the music.
Well, and that's all very interesting that you point that out because I love Bach, but for years, the best Bach performances I have were the Philadelphia Orchestra conducted by Eugene Ormandy. And I just don't think they were going for historical informed performances there. So I think there are probably tons of people who don't know how to seek it out. So I'm with you. I really wish that early music were more accessible through the radio around here, and hopefully somebody who has a little bit of decision making process, I mean decision making power, can take that opinion into mind while they're thinking about programming. So let's go back to your preparation for being an early music performer. So if you don't mind, take a couple of minutes and cover for me, first of all, how well do you think your college life, undergraduate and graduate, how well did it prepare you for what you do now? What do you wish that could have been done differently? And um, and and what do you think people studying to be a performer really need to take more seriously during their college life?
I am so thankful for my own trajectory and ending up at Indiana. Indiana kicks your butt. When you are, as a musician, going to school in Indiana, you must have all your foundational skills honed to, the highest level.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you will not survive. And learning how to prepare yourself independently is crucial, is perhaps the most um, crucial skill to build as a musician. And to actually understand when you have achieved the highest level of preparation. And that is often not being taught to young performers, that the expectations are held not high enough. Because, notes and rhythms, it's the starting point.
Hmm.
And if you cannot prepare those on your own to the highest level of accuracy, then the musical part, the expressive part, can never happen fully. You will always be limited. Um, but conversely to that, music is not just notes and rhythms and
Right.
accuracy. That the ability to learn what expressiveness is and the palette, that takes a lot of listening and doing.
Hmm.
And that is what I am most thankful for my Indiana University education, is that you were expected every day to do your best and at the highest level, and there's not that much help.
Yeah.
You are expected to be able to achieve um, on your own, and then the professors are there to help hone you and to challenge and to advance you. Um,
Yeah, that level, there's just no hand holding, is there?
no, no, I think of it as still boot camp, where they kind of tear you down by virtue of wherever you've been. Whenever you go to Indiana, you've become one of actually 1,600 in the School of Music back in 97,
Mhm.
and 600 of them were singers.
Yeah.
So you've gone from a school of, maybe 50 to now you're one of 600. And to understand your place is to actually look in and really assess and rise up, and um, yeah, that's my never lose your love, but also have discipline,
Okay.
passion and discipline.
Yeah. Well, this has been a very interesting talk. What I would like for you to leave with this maybe is let us know, what do you want to do in Atlanta? What performances would you like to be a part of? What are you hoping somebody calls you and says, "Hey, Wanda, we're going to do this and we want you to sing." What would you love to sing?
Well, I would um, actually, believe it or not, I still haven't sung the Pergolesi Stabat Mater, so that is number one.
Okay.
But high on the list are really small ensemble, maybe one on a part performances of Bach's Passions, actually.
Okay. Wow. I
So,
Well, who knows? Those opportunities may come up at some point. Because I'll tell you, even though it's not a plug, Amethyst Baroque Ensemble, we're looking to start bringing in some diverse little chamber groups and some one on a part folks. So who knows? There might be some opportunities in the future for somebody to do something, maybe even that. Well, Wanda, I've had a wonderful time talking to you today, and all I hope is that we can all be out of our homes in not too many weeks, and we can get out and function as musicians again. Meanwhile, we're mostly within our confines here. So, Wanda, you have a wonderful day. Um, do you know of any performances coming up where people can hear you, or is this just the wrong time to ask that?
well, if the date is a go, actually, New South Festival Singers
Okay.
in June. This would be, I think, June 13th or 14th. I have to look at my calendar. But it's a Sunday afternoon. If we're out of our houses by then, I'm the soprano soloist. Andrew Schmidt is the conductor.
Okay.
And the work is Beethoven's Mass in C major.
Oh,
So cross our fingers for June.
okay. I'll cross my fingers. I finally got my first call for something next season. I guess we're starting to hear the little proverbial birds chirp in the morning. Maybe we sense a little life coming back to everything. Well, Wanda, you have a great Easter Sunday. It was nice talking to you this morning, and we'll all look forward to hearing you soon. Okay. Okay.
Thanks, Jody.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Wanda.